Good evening and welcome to Washington State University's EM530 Applications in Constraints Management. Today we're continuing our discussion on multi-project with the Critical Chain Multi-Project Simulator, which is an automated version of a physical slider board game that was developed by Tony Rizzo at the Product Development Institute. All right, we're going to go through a simulation that's often used in a two-day workshop developed by the Product Development Institute, Tony Rizzo. His contact information is here. And in this workshop, the workshop participants are they are the simulation, and the materials that I control simply represent the condition that the resources provide. So the resources use spinners to generate some random numbers for their weekly output. So the workshop participants are the Monte-Carlo simulation. I have a dashboard that I record the information in. And we just have four resources in this simulation. We have blue resources, a blue resource and a blue resource manager, a yellow resource and a yellow resource manager, a red resource, and a green resource. The VP of Development is the person that's running the workshop. In this case, it's myself. This arises out of this old mechanical slider board that we used to carry around to workshops. And if anyone involved in the early days of critical chain development would recognize this slider board. And it has a bunch of pieces that you slide around, and that clear bar represents today. I think I can indicate here. Yes, this clear bar represents today, and as the tasks progress, this bar would be over here maybe say at week 2, and as tasks progress, the work that's behind the bar represents work in the past completed, and the work ahead of the bar represents upcoming work. You can see these bars are color-coded according to those 4 different resource colors, and there's an alternating sequence of projects. The benefits of this slider board was that it was physical. You could feel it. You could really see what was going on. People like to walk up and slide the pieces around, and it kind of helped you understand scheduling. The drawback is if you're traveling a lot and have to carry this through airports, it was rather heavy. And then the other drawback is that it would be difficult to put a financial model behind it. So we now have this represented in Microsoft Excel, and so we can also have a financial model embedded behind the scenes, so to speak. So this is how we model the resources. So each of those 4 resources gets a little sheet that has this spinner location on it. And you get 1 spin per week per resource. So the spinner looks like that, and I actually brought a spinner here. You spin it like this. Spins around there, and it ends up pointing at one of those numbers. That gives you the output for the resource for that week. So a business week has 5 days in it, and when you run that spinner, you generate a random number whose value is between 0 and 8. The average is 5. So on average, you move forward 1 week or 5 business days, and on average, your output should be 5 days. But there's variation. Sometimes things go well, sometimes things go badly. If things go well, you might have spun an 8. And so you get to take 8 days of work off of the project plan. If things go poorly, you might spin a 0. And so for that week, you got stuck, and you don't take any days off of the project plan. And actually, the probability of getting a number greater than or equal to 5 is 64%. So the point is, we've given the resources in this little simulation every advantage. So they get more than on average, they get more than the probability of getting a number greater than or equal to 5 is more than 50%. It's 64%. So we've set you up for success here. So that's the resource model. So again, this is a Monte-Carlo simulation. We're taking a random sample from a distribution, and we use that to check off work on the project plan. This is just one run of a Monte-Carlo simulation. If you do a Monte-Carlo simulation, you typically do 50 or 100 runs and figure out what the completion distribution is for the project. I should point out the shape of this distribution. It has a big hump on the right, and so what that means is your project is going to have the amount of work completed is going to tend to have a long right tail, which represents typical task distributions. And Reese mentioned that managers would really want to have this kind of a resource system for their project team. So here's the project planning. Here's the models we use for the project execution. So we've got two different types of projects, and one has two of these yellow features. So we've got a feature 1 design and a feature 2 design. This is what we call a type 1 project. The other type of project has three features in it. So feature 1, feature 2, feature 3 design. So the first task is done by the system engineer, and it's planned to take 3 weeks or 15 days. Then the second task is done by the software engineer, and that's scheduled for 3 weeks. And then we have this set of the feature integration work, which proceeds from week 6 to week 15. And then finally, the system engineer has to get involved with the system assembly and test. And to do the system assembly and test, we have to have this feed in from the mechanical engineer, the mechanical design, the mechanical assembly and test. So that's how that feeds in there. So where these tasks are abutted together, they represent a technical dependency. And then when we have the arrow feeding in, that would be an additional dependency. Likewise in the second project, but again, we've got 3 features, and so we have to have that third feature arriving before we can do feature 3 integration, then we can do system assembly and test. So not only do you have perfect resources, you've got perfect project. There's no surprise work. The only thing we're going to have is variation of how long it takes to complete each task. The actual work in the project is well known. There's not going to be any scope creep. So you've got perfect resources and perfect projects in this little simulation. What could possibly go wrong? Well, here are the policies we're going to use to run this system. So I'm running this system, and I know that if a resource is sitting idle, a resource that's not busy, why, that's a waste. So I want to make sure the resources are kept busy. My second issue I need to deal with is that each of these projects has a different customer. And we really need to show progress on each of these projects every week. So we're going to enforce the policy of multitasking. We're going to divide the weekly output across all active tasks. So once a task can be started, we need to start it and show progress on that. Otherwise, the customers for our projects are going to raise heck. There's going to be a financial model behind the scenes I'll talk about later. And finally, for the purpose of this class, this workshop takes place typically over the course of 2 days. Given that this class is a couple of hours, I'm going to use an average of 5 days per week for the purpose of demonstration. I'm just going to give you an output of 5 days per week, and that way I can quickly do the arithmetic to spread the output over the active tasks. So we're going to do this simulation in this class without variation. So not only do you have perfect project plans and perfect resources, there's no variation. Reese mentions that you should note that these policies are consistent with many systems or organizations that we see in real life. It's not unusual to have a belief that resource sitting idle is a waste. It's not unusual to believe that multitasking is the way to get a lot of things done. So I think these are very fair policies. Okay, let me switch this over to the Excel model now. Give that a second to paint your screen. All right, so this is, let me turn on this part. This is a representation of the projects. Again, there's really no logic behind the scenes. All this is going to do is use these little project plans to represent the status or the state of the simulation. So these are these project plans that we talked about earlier. Now, in order to set up this for this workshop, we're going to preload the system with some already completed work. And so on the first project, we've already completed the system engineering task, so we're ready for feature 1 design, this first yellow task. And project 2 is scheduled to start today at week 0. So at the top, we have a big 0 here, so we're starting the simulation at week 0. And this vertical bar corresponds to week 0. We have a scale across the top in weeks, through about 70 weeks. And a reminder at the top that our policy is to multitask. So here's each of these projects, and what we've done is staggered the projects for commitment dates based on the release of this system engineering resource. So you can see when the system engineering resource is released from project 0, it's planned to immediately start on project 1, and we just cascade on down through. And we've made these commitments. So there's a little nail at the end of at the apparent end of each of these projects, and that nail is our commitment to our customers. So the commitment for project 0 is at week 16, project 1 week 20, project 2 week 22, and so on. Now there's a financial model underlying the system. I'm going to show that next. Okay, here's our financial model shown in this little tab here. So we have an initial cash in the bank of $100,000. And we have a rate of cash flowing into the system at $1,000 a week. This is due to projects that we've earlier completed in our system. This is our ongoing cash flow. However, we should keep in mind that we might expect a little bit of a financial downturn in the future. Our product is no longer selling as well, so we're going to take a $2,000 downturn at week 5, just to be aware of that. Here's our cash rate out. So there's a cost for each one of these 4 resources at $2,000 per week, and then a combination of managers and executives is going to cost about $3,000 per week. And finally, we have an area where, if necessary, we can hire temporary assistants for the 4 different resources. So that's our financial model. So that's going to run in the background, and we can check in on how we're doing financially throughout the simulation. So again, in a workshop, we'll have 4 resources out in the room running spinners. and they'll have a spinner paper in front of them where they can record each of their spins. So those are the 4 resources. And then we have 4 resource managers. They'll actually be the ones to record on the paper they'll record on the project plans. They'll apply the output of the spins onto these project plans. Then we have project managers, and project managers are responsible for hustling these project plans. So we actually have these project plans I'm showing on the dashboard here. We have these represented on paper, and the project managers are responsible for hustling these project plans around. As a task is completed by one resource, they need to move it to the next resource. And they also are responsible for meeting their commitment dates. So I've asked Steve and Reese to play the role of a project manager a little bit. So we might have to have some conversations with them as we proceed into the simulation. Okay, so that's the setup for the simulation. My next step is going to be to call for starting the project. We'll step into the first week and apply the output of the resources to the first project. But let me pause for a second, see if anybody has any questions, and see if both Reese and Steve have run this workshop many times as well. I just want to see if you gentlemen want to add anything, or if anybody has any questions before we proceed in with the simulation. Give me a green check if you're alive. Give me a red X if you're not. Uh-oh, we had one with X. Had to change. Thank you. Appreciate that. Steve says he wants projects to succeed. Good. And Reese wants to know what project he's managing. Reese, I think you've got project 2, and Steve has project 3. How do I decide how much work is done for each task? Again, all right. So in a typical workshop, we'll spin a spinner. That's how much work the resource put out that week, and we'll split that across all active tasks. Now, because I'm not good at doing arithmetic quickly under pressure, I'm going to do a simpler approach. I'm just going to say every week there's an output of 5 days, and I'm going to apply that across the project. So we're going to look at this simulation without variation. It makes it a little more straightforward. So every week there's going to be 5 days of work, and it's just going to be divided across the active tasks. Right, so Steve is already role-playing a project manager, because since he's the project manager of Project 3, clearly Project 3 should have top priority, and all the output should go to Project 3. And it's quite interesting in a workshop to see the project managers pitted against each other and vying to get the capacity applied to their project and not to follow the multitasking rule. Or if we do follow the multitasking rule and there's an odd number like 5, I want to get 3 days of output on my project, and some other project manager can suffer through with only 2 days of work on their project. Reese says it's not due until after Project 2. All right, so Reese says to Project Manager 3, why should you get higher priority? Because your due date is later. Okay, so in a real workshop, I would say spin for week 1. All the resources would spin their spinners, and then they'd write down their output. They might get an 8, they might get a 0. They'd write down their output, and then the project manager would, the resource manager would apply their output to the active tasks. So here's, right now there's 1 yellow, 1 blue, and 1 green task active. So we don't have any opportunity to multitask yet. So I'm going to apply 5 days of output to each one of these tasks. So let me just do that quickly. So we started out with 15 days remaining in this first task. We're going to take off. We went a week ahead, 5 business days. So I'm going to say we always spin a 5. So we're going to go down to 10. Same way here. And finally on the systems engineering task. Okay, I'm going to update it. All right, so we've proceeded 1 week in the simulation. We've taken 5 days of the project work. We've completed 5 days of the project work, and we're still on track to meet all of our commitments. Project managers are doing well. And the project managers are still arguing over who gets the output of the resources. You guys aren't even in a conflict yet. Okay, let me just let you digest this for a second and see if there's any questions about what's going on with the simulation. Okay, spin for week 2. Oh, you guys all spun a 5 again? Okay. And it looks like there's, so I'm just checking to see if this task has started yet. It hasn't started because of grayed out. I can't update it. So we've again got 3 tasks active. You guys all spun a 5 again, so I'm going to apply 5 days of effort to each one of these. Takes this guy down to a 5. This guy down to a 5. Now, and this guy down to a 5. Update. Okay, we're still on track to meet our commitments. Everything's fine. Spin for week 3. Everybody spun a 5. So I got to take 5 days here, 5 days here. Let's see, has this, oh goodness, it looks like project 2 has started. So I need to split my capacity. So should I put 3 days on project 1 and 2 days on project 2, or should I put 2 days on project 1 and 3 days on project 2? Well, Reese says project 2 has a higher value and a higher payoff, so I should apply the capacity there. Oh, Reese thinks we should put 5 on 2. Well, we need to be fair, so I'm going to go ahead and put 3 here, 2 here. And let's update. Okay, week 4. Oh, look. Nope, nothing to look at. Nothing to see here. So it looks like we've got, everybody spun a 5 again, so red gets to apply 5. We go down to 10 days. Yellow gets to apply 5. This second yellow task isn't starting yet, so we get to apply 5 here. Green, we get to apply 5. And blue, we want to do 2, then 3. Got to be fair. Okay, that's week 4. Spin for week 5. It looks like I've got 2 green tasks started, or 2 green tasks can start, so I'll need to split my capacity there. I've got 2 yellow tasks started, I'll need to split my capacity there. And I've only got 1 blue task active, so I don't need to split there. So red's going to go 5. Yellow, we've got to go 3, then 2. Green, we've got to go 3, then 2. And blue, we can go 5. Uh-oh. I was unfair to a project manager. We'll give you a higher spin of capacity on the next round. Right, let's look on how we're doing compared to our commitments. Project 1 looks like it's on, or Project 0 looks like it's on track, so Project 0 project manager is probably going to get a bonus this year. Project 1, commitment date is week 20. The expected finish is at 21.6, so it's a little behind, but maybe we can catch up again. Project 3, commitment's week 22. Looks like it's right on track to finish on week 22, so that's okay. Let's check and see how we're doing on the financial picture. Okay, we had a snapshot of every week as we proceeded up to week 5, and we're getting that income of $1,000 a week. So we start off with $100,000 of cash available, and we're increasing. So financially, we look like we're okay. Reese mentions that his project is suffering from a lack of resource capacity. Ask the yellow resource manager to get more help to catch up. Let's consider getting more help in a couple of weeks. Okay, spin for week 6. So red has 1 active. We can go 5 days here. I don't think we have another red task active, so we knock off that red. Yellow, we can go 2, then 3. I told you I was going to be fair. Green, got to split our capacity across 2 tasks, so we can go 2, then 3. Again, we got to be fair. And finally blue now. Uh-oh, is this task, oh, this is ready to start, so we need to apply some capacity to project 3 as well as project 2, so I'll go 3, then 2 again. And week 7, so we can go 5 here. Two, then let's see, 3, then 2. Got to be fair. Green, 3, and 2, and finally blue, 2, then 3. Okay. So the possibility it was raised up, Reese mentioned we better ask for some help to catch up. Yellow might need some help. Let's see, what's our condition here? Project 0 is on time. Project 2 is committed for week 20, but it's not expected to finish until week 22. So Project 2 is falling behind. So maybe yellow could help get us caught up. Project 3, its commitment is week 22, and its expected finish is week 23. So project 3 is starting to fall behind. So if you guys are looking for some help, let's consider hiring then. Let's go to HR. So there's a bunch of active tasks for the yellow and for the green, so we can consider hiring. And so in a workshop, what you'd kind of do is you watch the variation and you watch the spins and you wait until there's a whole lot of work on everybody's desk, and then you can definitely sucker them into hiring a couple of temps. So if you guys want to hire some temps, so let's see, we want to hire a yellow, and we need a green. Right, so this should help us to catch up. A couple of comments. So Rick mentions that in his organization, Project 4 would want to get an early start to get a jump on the game. Yes, right. So that's the problem, is we often don't have a system to throttle, to release the work at the rate the constraint can handle it. So we just push work into the system as fast as we can. So yes, I expect Project 4 would be wanting to get an early start. Steve doesn't want to lose his bonus, so clearly we do need to hire. And Judy mentions temps are not as productive. Okay, temps are not as productive. I've given you a perfect simulation. These temps are exactly as productive as the real resources. And so the yellow is now going to be able to roll, on average, a 10 every week. The green's going to roll a 10 every week. We're giving you perfect resources for this simulation. The temp will need at least a week or more like a month to get spun up. Yes, in real life, absolutely right. In this simulation, we have perfect resources. So what could possibly go wrong? So we've got our temps now. So now we still have to multitask, but now we can split 10 across their output rather than 5. Okay, spin for week 8. So red only has 1 active task, and we have 5 units of output, 5 days of output for red that week. Yellow has 1, 2, 3 active tasks, and we have 10 days of output to split across it. So let's go 4, 3, 3, 3. 4, 3, 3. 4 days of output, 3 days of output, and 3 days of output. Green has 3 active tasks, I think. Yeah, green has 3 active tasks. So again, we'll go 4, 3, 3. And finally, blue. What's the situation with blue? We've only got 1 task that's available for work for blue, and we've got 1 blue resource. We only get 5 days of output. So there's blue. Spin for week 9. So for red, we've only got 1 active task. There it is. We get 5 days of output. Red is done. Yellow, we've got 3 active tasks. So we can go 3, 4, 3. Oh, yellow only has 2 active tasks. So we can go 5, and 5. Green, we've got 3 active tasks. So we're going to go 3, 4, 3. And finally blue. Blue has 2 active tasks. So we can go 3 and 2. Spin for week 10. So let's see, it doesn't look like this is quite ready to start. We've still only got one active task for the red, so we got to go 5 days here. Yellow, we've got 2 active tasks, so we can go 5 and 5. Oh no, we can only go 3 and 7. I don't think we can start this yet. Yeah, we'll go 3 and 7. I've got 3 more units of output I can apply, but there's no active task I can apply it to, so we lose some capacity because of the handoff delays. So green, knock that down to 0. We've still got 9 units of output, so we can knock that down to 0. And then finally blue, so we get do 2 and 3. Okay, now one of the things that we point out during the workshop is that during that multitasking time, as you're figuring out how to split your output across several different projects, there's all these project plans laying all over the place. There's project managers running around competing for getting their output applied. It's a very busy, stressful environment. Reese also points out that when you're multitasking, you've got the spin-up time. So every time you do a task switching, in a real environment, you lose a lot of capacity due to the task switching. Even the simulation, it just gives you trouble. There's a lot of stress involved with all the task switching. Let's see how we're doing versus our commitment. So project 1 looks like it's right on track. Project 2, commitment is week 20. Expected finish is week 24. So project 2, project manager, you're a little bit behind. I'd be concerned about where your next mortgage payment is going to come from. Think about that. Project 3, your commitment is week 22. Your expected finish is week 23. You're not so far behind. Let's see how we're doing financially. Oh my goodness. Remember I told you there was going to be a little bit of a financial downturn at week 5? Well, there it is. So now we're starting to drop off on our cash, and if the situation continues, we have to finish a project to start getting some revenue. And if you project this down, it looks like we're going to be out of money at week 20. So are we going to be able to finish a project before week 20 and get that revenue? That's something we need to look at. So Dr. Holt says it was all those part-time employees. So maybe that wasn't, so depending on how things go, sometimes you keep the part-time employees on and sometimes you fire them. Based on this condition, we better fire them to make sure that we can make our revenue by week 20. So let me turn off the financial model. Let's go back to the HR department and let's fire these temps. So we hired them at week 7, we fired them at week 10. And let's go over these comments. So let's see. So Reese sent me a memo. We need to hire more red. We need a dedicated resource for project 2. You need to hire more red. Well, red is a very critical resource. They're a systems analyst, and we have looked all over the world, and we cannot find another red resource. So it's just not possible. We'd love to do that for you, but we just can't hire another red resource. So I can't help you there. Spin smarter, not harder. Dr. Johnson says, the resource manager would have also been complaining about the red and green folks having nothing to do for the first 2 to 3 weeks, and maybe even threatened to outsource red as it's too expensive to have it sit idle. Yes, all those things are going on. So let's see. We know we need to have a project finished by week 20 in order to start to have a little bit of revenue. Our current expectation is for project 1 to finish at week 16. And furthermore, you project managers, our commitment was week 20 and the expected finish is week 24. So is it going to finish at week 24? Can I count on you to get that done on week 24? Oh, wait, one of our project managers is thinking about filling out his resume. So we want to put the project managers on the spot here and say, can you really predict, given this multitasking system, can you really predict when the project is going to finish? And think about the real environments where we're not doing critical chain and where the multitasking is rampant. We don't have priorities between projects. And just consider whether the simulation does represent a real environment that you've seen. And I'm getting the yes sir response on making the commitments. Steve says he'll do his best, but he just can't control some of the bad employees that we have. So really, he's an outstanding project manager, but these employees that, it's the problem, these employees spitting zeros all the time. Okay, let's proceed. So now I've got, I fired 2 attempts, so now I've got an output of 5 units per week to apply. So spin for week 11. Now, let's see how many tasks we have active for the red. So I've got 1 task, 2 tasks, 3 tasks active for the red. I've got 5 units, so I'm going to go 2-2-1 today. So there's 2 units of output, there's 2 units of output, there's 1 unit of output. Yellow, I've got 3 tasks active, so again I'm going to go 2-2-1. Green, I've got 3 tasks active. Let's go 2-2-1 again. We're required to show progress on all active projects. Finally, blue. Blue has only got 1 task active. We can apply an output of 5. Now, a question often comes up: do we need to multitask within a project? So I've got a yellow. I've got tasks from the yellow in front of me, and do I need to multitask within a project? And the policy is no, you don't need to multitask within a project, just across the projects. Reese mentions that he has no way to predict when his project will finish since he doesn't control a critical resource. Critical resource probably being that red one. Okay, spin for week 12. Red has 3 active, so we're going to go 1-2-2. Yellow has 3 active. Again, we'll go 1-2-2. Be fair. Green has 3 active, 1-2-2. And finally, blue, 1 active. We can apply 5 units of output. Blue got project 4 started. Spin for week 13. Okay, red has 3 active again, so we're going to go this time 2-1-1. You can see if you only apply 1 day of output per week, the projects don't complete very fast. So that was red. Now we're going to do yellow. 2-1-1. Green. I made some kind of mistake, but it's okay. We'll just consider it normal variation. Again, we're going to go 2-1. Actually, we should go 1. 1. 1. 2. And finally, blue Blue has nothing active. Blue is sitting idle. That's a waste. Okay, spin for week 14. Red has 3 tasks active, so we can go 2, 1, 1. Yellow, 2, 1, 1. I missed getting capacity onto that project. Green. Two, 3, 4, 5, and finally blue, nothing active. Okay, spin for week 15. Blue still can't quite start yet. We've still got some work remaining here. I've got 3 active, so I can go 1, 2, 2 again. 1, 2, 2. Yellow. There's 2, 3, 4, 5 days of output. Green. Again, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of output, and blue's not active. Let's update and let's look at how we're doing. Okay, project 1 was supposed to deliver at week 16. It's week, and now the expected finish is week 19. Remember, our projection was that we were going to run out of cash at week 20, so I sure hope that we're going to get that project finished at week 19 or week 20, or we're going to be in big trouble. Project 2, you see the nail here? Commitment is week 20, the expected finish is week 27. So often what we'll do in a real workshop is we'll make a recommitment here, and then we'll see if the project managers can meet their new commitment. You can see that the work of the red resource is overlapping, so the red resource has to multitask across all these projects. It might take a while to get this system done, and then the difficulty is predicting when things are going to finish. So do we really expect to, okay, so that's a question. So project manager 1, do you expect to get this project done at the apparent end at 27.4? Are you gonna finish at your commitment?
I'm sorry, Scott, you said project 1. You didn't assign a project manager for project 1.
That's who's the project manager for project 1? Oh, well, that does not work out too good for me, is it? Okay. Okay, sorry. All right. So project manager for project 2, your commitment is week. Well, your commitment is week 22. It's currently expected to finish at week 26.6. Are we going to meet this? Are we going to meet? Let's see. Are we going to deliver at week 22?
I'm afraid not.
I'm afraid not. Okay. So I don't want to have to go back to the customer and renegotiate the commitment date more than once. So can you give me a very good, safe commitment of when you're going to expect your project to finish? So is it going to be at week 30?
Well, I would say that sort of depends on other executive actions, including my recommendation to cancel Project 3, because we have an interference problem here and we're not getting the support that we need. If we continue to not get the support we need, I would say a more realistic time would be more like week 45.
Week 45. So assume the conditions are going to be the same as they are. We can't really change the system. We've made all these commitments. The system's not going to change. I understand you'd like to have help, but right now you're saying we're looking at week 45. So
as far as
you
know,
assure
yes.
me that you're going to finish by week 45. Okay, so let's consider week 45 to be the renegotiated commitment for this project. And now project 3 project manager, I believe that's Steve. Your project was due on week 26 and now it's week 30.8. So are we going to meet the commitment of week 26? All right, maybe Steve fell off the line, but you can see that he would push his commitment out to about week 50. So looking at the real performance of the real system, first of all, we can't meet these original commitments. Second, it's very difficult to predict when these projects are going to finish. Let's see how we're doing financially. When we fired the temps, that increased our lifetime a little bit, but if we project this slope, it gets down to about week 40. So that's when we start to gain revenue. And the question is, are we going to run out of money before we start to gain revenue again? That's the question to ask given the system. Let's take a 5-minute break here and then continue. Let's see, set a timer here somehow. All right, we're back from break. And I'm hoping the performance improves because we really need to get some of these projects out. So let's see if the spinners can. We've got some banners. We posted banners up all over the offices. And all the banners say, spin smarter, not harder. And we're expecting this new initiative to really improve the performance of the system. But the policies remain the same. Anybody have any questions or comments before we continue with the simulation? Multitasking. Yes, multitasking must continue. Policies remain the same. Week 15, the policy is multitask. Want to consider hiring more votes, more temps. Okay, if you want to hire let's consider that. Let's go to HR. Okay, look at the temps. Okay, if you want to hire a blue resource, give me a green check. Otherwise, give me a red X so that I know you're alive. If you want to hire a blue resource, give me a green check. Otherwise, give me a red X. Oh, we have 2 votes to hire a blue and 6 votes to not hire a blue. Okay, 8 votes to not hire a blue. We want to revisit our policy of multitasking. We have to show progress on these projects. We have customers that are waiting to see these projects. They need to see progress. Okay, 8 votes against hiring a blue, so I'm gonna clear we're not gonna hire a blue. How about a yellow? Give me a green check if you want to hire a yellow, or otherwise a red X. Okay, green check if you want to hire a yellow, otherwise a red X. So you're looking at the remaining work for the yellow. Can that help us? Steve, the project manager, says he doesn't need one. All right, looks like nobody wants to hire a yellow. Okay, let me clear the votes. Okay, let's consider hiring a red. So give me a green check if you want to hire a red resource, otherwise a red X. Oh, we have one person doesn't want to hire a red, and everybody else wants to hire a red resource. Oh, we want to hire 2 red resources. Oh, that's a possibility. We've got room for 2 red resources. Okay, so we all want to hire red resources. I've just checked with HR. They've scoured the planet. They have found 2 additional red resources. We can hire them, but the catch is they can't get off of their current assignment and get over here until week 45. So we can hire them starting on week 45. Good news. Help is coming. Okay, green resource. If you want to hire a green resource, give me a green check, otherwise give me a red X. Well, it seems there's some dissatisfaction in the ranks about the ruling on the red resource. What can I do? They're not available here. It takes time to get them here. That's just what it takes. I wish we could do better. Oh, pink or maroon? Can we use someone close? That's a good idea. Is there another resource that we could cross-train or might be able to help? That's worth considering. Maybe some way we could help the red resource without actually hiring a red resource. That's worth considering. Replace the boss. That's never going to happen. Okay, so we're not hiring a green. Okay, so we consider hiring. There's really no hiring. Any other questions or comments before we proceed? Replace the boss. That might be damaging to your career to make that suggestion. Spin for week 16. And what have we got? We've got, so red has 3 active tasks, so let's go 2, 2, and 1. Yellow, we can go 2, 1, 1, 1, or 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, green, 2, 1, 1, 1, and finally blue can apply 5 days of effort. Well, probably don't want to continue to see me poke these buttons. So I've set up the simulation the same way. I've run it to week 20, and so I can just switch right to week 20 here. So if I proceed using these same rules, this is what the condition looks like when we arrive at week 20. So at week 20, our commitment for project 0 was week 16. Our expected finish is week 23. Still haven't finished project 0. Project 1, our commitment is week 20. Our expected finish is week 29.2. Project 2, our commitment is week 22. And actually it's week 20, so our commitment is in 2 weeks. Our expected finish is week 31.8, and the revised commitment was week 45, I think it was. Is that correct? Something like week 45 is our what we'd like to make a revised commitment to. And then for project 3, we were looking at around week 50 as when we're expecting it to start.
Excuse me, I should have raised my hand, but
so
you just, I think, renumbered the projects. Are you going with 0, 1, 2, 3? Because my project 2 revised commitment was week 45. You're pointing at
yes, week 45 for project 2. I thought I may have misspoken. So let's talk about that. So project 2, you're saying.
Sorry, I got that wrong. Project 1, the commitment I made for project 1 was week 45.
No, they match up.
Sorry, the way you're looking at it right now, I have project.
You had project 2, right?
Project 2.
You're saying you have this project?
Okay.
There's little numbers. I don't know if you can see on your screen. There's little numbers inside of each project. And first project is 0, then 1, then 2.
Okay.
I believe you have project 2 here.
Yep.
Which is where my finger is pointing. And you revise your commitment to week 45. Yep. Okay. Are you still expecting to finish at week 45?
That's a good question. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Project 3 project manager.
Yes,
Steve,
50 it is.
So we made a revised commitment, and wasn't that about week 50? Is that correct?
I can't think of any reason why I can't.
And are you expecting to finish?
Unless
are you expecting to finish
interference
week 50
with other
still?
projects or bad employees. Exactly, and I'm very pleased to hear that you understand that.
So clearly it would be no fault of your own if we didn't finish by week 50. Okay, all right, I understand, so thank you. All right, so let's look at our financial picture. So currently our projected lifetime is maybe down to about week 45. So this company is getting run into the ground through. Clearly, it's not the fault of the VP here. So week 45. But we're expecting to have this project finished. I think we have to have 2 projects to finish to start to catch up. But things aren't looking good. So maybe I should revisit some policies. Maybe I should do some things differently. So if you have an idea what I should do differently, can you maybe either raise your hand and talk or put it in the chat? How should we operate differently, if we should operate any differently? Or maybe things are going. Six Sigma. Oh, yes, we need to do Six Sigma. So what we need to do is reduce the variation of the weekly output of the resources. Maybe reduce it from variation of 5 a week to, how could we reduce that? Not sure if Six Sigma is actually going to help us, given that I've represented 0 variation. But that would be a good suggestion in a real workshop where we do have variation. Use buffers. Use buffers. Use buffers. Tell me more about use buffers. How is buffers going to help me? I can make buffered commitments, so if I continue to multitask and I make buffered commitments, is that going to really improve my system? Reduce, cut costs. We could reduce the salary of employees, cut our costs. Maybe that'll help get us out of this hole. No multitasking. No multitasking. A change in policy. Let's see. How could we do no multitasking? Okay, if we want to do no multitasking, we have to change the policy to prioritize. So we need to know the priorities of the projects. We need to communicate those priorities clearly. So we're going to change the policy to prioritize. And we're going to say the priorities are project 0 first, then project 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So I've changed the policy to no multitasking. I've said to prioritize. Anything else we need to do? Cancel project number 3. Cancel project number 3. But we've got a customer counting on our output of that project. So if we cancel that, we're going to have to disappoint our customers. So maybe that's not the best choice. What else could we do? Fire project manager 2. Make him the manager of project 3. Pick up the load. Our project manager 3 seems to have see a negative branch with that approach. So I've prioritized the project. So my policy now is no more multitasking. I've said no more multitasking. Stop the multitasking. Now I've prioritized these projects. So how should I represent these projects now? How should I change these models to represent the new system that we're planning on doing? So we've decided we're not going to be multitasking. So that means this project is going to finish at a full level of effort, and maybe we're going to have a project buffer on the end of it, but it's going to work off something like this. Now this project, if we're not going to multitask, we can't start this, we can't continue this remaining work at week 20. So we should probably adjust this model to represent the new policy. So I think I can make a connection here. Well, what I'm going to do is go to an area I've pre-set up with the updated model. But what I want to do is look at this second project. I want to push it out so it starts at the release of the drum, indicator. So let's look at what that would look like. So here what I've done is I've taken those policies and I've created a model to represent those current policies. So I said we're gonna work off the first project at a full level of effort, and there's no conflict with the second project, so we'll work off the remaining work on the second project. But then the red resource isn't available to continue the work here at week 20, so the red resource is going to be available to continue the work at about week 23 or 24 or so. So I've made this little link here to indicate a release of the drum from the earlier project and the start of the engagement of the drum for the later project. Now when we engage the drum later, we also want to let the feeding work move later and integrate in a feeding buffer of time before it's needed. So you see our feeding work integrating here with feeding buffers into our critical chain, and then I'm going to put a project buffer on the end before I make the commitment and nail the commitment down. Yes, inter-project critical chain. So this is kind of the multi-project critical chain, or the chain of work for the drum resource. Now you might notice that each of the project buffers is getting slightly bigger. That's because in this model that I'm displaying, I don't have capacity buffers, so I'm expecting on the release of the drum from the earlier project to immediately start the later project. And so because I don't have any capacity buffer in the model for the drum resource, I'm increasing my project buffers to account for the possibility of a late release of the drum resource. So this is what you can do in your real system. So in the real system, you want to prioritize the projects, come up with a list of priorities for the projects, communicate that well so that everybody knows what the project priorities are. Then any work that's ongoing for future projects, you're essentially freezing. We're saying no work is going to proceed on project number 2 until about week 23. So essentially we're freezing these later projects in place, and we're going to finish project 1 and project 2 at a full level of effort. Now we have to deal with the customer commitments. And we had original commitments that you saw on the earlier slide, and it was clear that we weren't going to meet them. And in fact, our customers are probably used to us not meeting those commitments. They don't believe we're going to meet them anyway. So we're going to have to go and renegotiate these commitments for these projects. We've changed our system. We expect the output of the system to be better and more predictable. And we should be able to have this conversation with the customers just once. And in any case, they're expecting the projects to finish somewhere around our current commitments anyway, based on past performance. So even though project number 2 is going to be frozen and no work is going to proceed on project number 2 until about week 23, it's going to be frozen for 3 weeks. We're expecting it to finish faster, and we're going to run through the simulation and see if that indeed happens. Okay, I think I'm ready to proceed. Let me stop and see if there's any other questions or comments before we go ahead and operate under the policy of prioritization and see if this goes any better. Any questions or comments? You can type in the chat or raise your hand or just speak out if you have any comments or questions or anything else that I should cover before we proceed. What about the yellow and the green? Oh, so the yellow and the green, they don't have any work to do until about week 23. So what do we do with the yellow and the green? Well, so we've frozen these later projects, and in the critical change strategy and tactics tree, it talks about using the resources freed up from the frozen projects to do preparations on the ongoing projects. So we want to use the yellow and green resources to see if there's anything they can do to assist with projects 1 and 2. If there's nothing to do that they can do to assist with projects 1 and 2, they can work on preparations for projects 2, 3, and 4. Make sure that we have a so-called full kit, that we have everything we need that once that project gets going to start at a full level of effort. So yes, we could lay them off. We could do training and cross-training, fortifications, polish the chrome. It's not good for a resource to sit idle. This is a negative branch, and so in a real implementation, we want to consider what does happen to those yellow and green resources. We want to make plans to make sure that we don't have them sitting around, that we put them in a useful way to making the whole system go faster. And the useful way of making the whole system go faster isn't to continue to increase the work in process. We want to freeze the work in process and have them either help get projects underway to continue or help get full kits ready for the remaining work. Good comment. Any other questions or comments? Okay, one more thing. Let's see, what do we have? Project 2, I think, is Reese. Project manager for project 2, given the new rules and given the buffer here, your commitment is about week 44, which is earlier than, let me just check something here. Okay, it's week 42. Your commitment is at the end of the project buffer is week 42. That's earlier than your earlier expectation of week 45. Do you accept that commitment? Do you think you can make it? Yes. Okay, I'm getting a yes. Okay, and project 3 project manager, that's Steve. Your commitment is week 53. And I think earlier you were saying about week 50. So
yeah, I think I can because I thought I could be done earlier than that. Although I will admit I was a bit optimistic on the earlier estimate.
Any idea the probability of finishing that project on or before week 53?
I don't have any experience with this, so I'm really in trust me mode right now. I certainly know it wasn't looking good before.
Okay, so when we put a typically sized project buffer on here, you have a 90 to 95% probability of finishing the project on or before the commitment date. However, we do have this additional critical chain along here, and so I guess Steve is kind of trusting me that I've sized this project buffer to account for both the drum resource multi-project as well as the work in the project plan. So trust me. Okay, didn't think you could make it either, so nobody believed you anyway. So, spin for week 21. So now I don't have to multitask anymore. So we can take 5 days off of project 0. And here we can take and we can't start. We only had 1 day we could take off. We can't start project 1. So we're getting a little bit of variation, but look, we're absorbing that in the buffer. And no other updates. So spin for week 22. And we've got, we can take 5 days. Whoops. I did red first. We take 5 days off the red, 5 days off the blue. Spin for week 23. We've finished project 0 at week 23, well before our commitment at about week 27. So there's a big ka-ching, and we're starting to get cash flow. So now we can start to accrue back the capital that we were losing. We were burning up. And the red is no longer multitasking. We get 5 full days here. And you can see now things are suddenly a little more boring. There's a lot less going on. Spin for week 24. Take 5 days off. The red. And it looks like we can take off on the yellow. And green is not scheduled to start quite yet. Spin for week 25. Five days on the red, 5 days on the yellow, and 5 days on the green. Let's update this and take a look at how we're doing now. Schedule-wise, project 0 is finished. We're getting that revenue for a few weeks now. Project 1, we've had some incursion in the buffer of a few days. This is due to that handoff delay when a task finishes and we can't apply the output. But we've got a buffer to absorb that variation. And project 2, again, just a little bit of buffer incursion here. And project 3 isn't into work yet. Let's look at how we're doing on the financial picture. Let me do one thing here. Okay, we're starting to get some revenue, so our lifeline is leveling off a little bit. Now if we make a new projection, it's looking like we've got life until about week 55. But as we finish projects, that should help us level out. And we have a comment from Reese. Now I can focus on the project, not arguing with the other project managers and worrying about the VPs. That's right. Now project managers can work together instead of being pitted against each other because we've got clear priorities. Spin for week 26. Okay, 5 days. 5 days. 5 days. 5 days. Things are completely like clockwork. Life is boring. You notice there's just a lot less going on. Spin for week 27. Five days. Oh, there it is. We complete that work. We don't get to use 5 days, and then our green. Spin for week 28. Now, in the real workshop, we throw in an urgent field problem. So we have a little unexpected work that we throw in there so we can show that the buffers absorb that unexpected work. And it really has no effect on the projects because we use the green and the yellow resource. Spin for week 29. That's all that's active. Spin for week 30. Do things seem to be going better? Okay, we've done all the updates for week 30. Let's close this. See how we're doing. Take the pulse. Okay, project 0. Completed, week 23. Project 1, completed, and we've got about a week's revenue. It completed at the very beginning of the buffer, just a little bit of a buffer incursion, so it's completed much earlier than our delivery. So if the customer can take it early, we can deliver it early. Otherwise, we've got a guarantee that we're going to deliver it on time. Project 3, we've got a little bit of a buffer incursion. But the drum resource is now available to work on the remaining work, and then we'll use the system engineer, and it's expected to finish on time. There's no multitasking, so it's going to proceed the week of 5 days per week. The only possibility is we could have a bit of a handoff delay. So at worst, we get another weeks of buffer incursion, but we're good on our commitment. Project 3, no changes. We haven't got to start working the remaining work of Project 3. And financially, how are we doing? Leveling off even a little bit more. Okay, spin for week 31. We get to apply 5 full days of effort. And it doesn't look like yellow's quite scheduled to start, but we can take some green. Spin for week 32. Looks like yellow's scheduled to start. Let's do 5 days there. Spin for week 33. Drum resources done with project 3. And spin for week 34. We'll probably just go to week 35 and call that good. I think you get the sense of things. So we got 5 days here. So we're working off project 3. Whoops. Not sure what I did there. I guess I go here. And that's the updates. So week 35. Now in the real workshop, you might be spending as much as an 8 or as low as a 0. So the variation kind of introduces some interest. I made a mistake somewhere in here, but we just chalk that up to variation. We're robust to mistakes like that. Let's do an update, and let's just take a final look at the picture. We're within about a week or so of finishing project 3. Clean up the links here. So within a week or so of finishing Project 3 and getting that additional revenue, Project 0 is complete, Project 1 is complete, and Project 3 appears to be on track. We've got just a little bit of buffer incursion, but we've got plenty of protection against our commitment to our customer, and likewise with Project 4. Let's look at how we're doing in the financials. Aha, we've leveled off this dive. So had we continued to multitask, there's no doubt we would have continued at this rate. Maybe there'd be a little bit of correction if we ever finished one project, but certainly we wouldn't be able to pull out of the dive. So we're down to week about 45,000, about half of our cash available, and now we're going to start to grow as we complete more projects. So revenue rise we're starting to recover. So let's cut ahead and see what this looks like at week 50. If I fast forward the simulation to week 50, let's see how things look. So at week 50, Project 0 is completed, Project 1 is complete, Project 2 is complete, just a little bit of buffer incursion. Project 3 is complete, well, a little bit more buffer incursion. Again, this is the occasional handoff delays gives you a little buffer incursion. And at week 50, Project 4 is on track to finish by the commitment, considering that we have a buffer in place. There's actually a fair amount of buffer incursion, and that's because I played in an urgent field problem that used the red resource to show that we can still account for unplanned work and still make our commitments. Let's look at how we're doing financially. So we went into that dive, got down to about $45,000 in the bank, and now we're starting to grow the revenue. So it seems like this prioritization policy seems to be rather paying off. So let's go back to we'll close the financials, and let's go back and look at the earlier multitasking condition. So this is how we started. This is where we decided to change our policies. And the earlier picture was how we ended up. So think about how we got from a current system that looks like this. How do we get from this current system of multitasking to a system where we had prioritization and we had a drum schedule? What were the things that we did? And the CEO called, finally you guys are getting out of your hole. I told you you would if you finish on time. Yes, we're starting to climb out of the hole. So think about this picture, think about this condition, and how in a real system can we get from multitasking to a prioritized system where the work flows out? How do we make that transition? What were the changes we made to the system to make it flow? Eliminated the dummy constraint of bad policy multitasking. Dummy constraint of bad policy multitasking. So does multitasking exist in a real environment? And can you just declare my policy is no multitasking? Does that solve it? So I guess the answer is yes, multitasking exists. And declaring no multitasking, I'm not sure if that's sufficient to stop multitasking. You have to make it very, very difficult for the resources to multitask. Best way is to take that work off of their plate if you can't. Just take that work off of their plate. So when we freeze the projects, we're taking the work off their plate. We need to make it very dangerous for people to continue to work on projects that are frozen. It is situational. Ron Moser mentions it's situational. Yes, how you do these implementations is situational. The project strategy and tactics tree gives you a very good general purpose recipe. It can apply in most situations, but I don't think it can be applied without thinking. Coach the boss's expectations. Be sure to look at today's Dilbert. I haven't seen it, so I'll be sure to look at that later. So,
yeah, I just
okay,
I
put
this comment in here about Dilbert, and it really does fit in exactly with this discussion, because it's very scary for resources at this point to look at this kind of thing and see they're not going to be utilized 100% of the time. People don't like that. Resource managers don't like it, and the resources don't like it, because what they've seen in the past is bad things happen when you run out of work. And so in today's Dilbert, the project manager approaches Wally and says, 3 months, that's how long I've been waiting for you to do your part of the project. Wally says, perhaps you don't realize how many projects I'm on. The project manager says, have you done any work on the other projects? So Wally says, that would defeat the point of having multiple projects.
We're going to have to frame that one. So what are the implications? What are the implications of this? So Wally's on multiple projects. He's using that as a reason to give for not completing work on a particular project. But what we also see is people, despite, there's this fundamental belief in TOC, a pillar of TOC, that people are fundamentally good. We don't have any Wallys. So the reason they're multitasking is not because they want to slow down the system. It's they're doing the best they can under the policies that they have. So what we have to do if we want to change the system is we have to make it very difficult for them to multitask. Again, the best way is if you can freeze those projects, take that work off their plate, so they cannot. Other comments? Questions? So I'll remind you, I think 2 lectures ago, I kind of gave the overall multi-project approach. Step 1, prioritize the projects. Step 2, schedule each project as a critical chain project. So let's go to week 20. Let me save this under a different name so I can open up week 20. So we'll show that in a second. It's probably going to take more time to switch than we really have, but at week 20 we scheduled each project as an individual critical chain project, resolve resource contention within the project but not across projects, and then you simply create a drum schedule where you stagger the projects on the drum. Then you freeze the projects that start in the future and work at a full level of effort on the projects that are underway. It's kind of this overall multi-project approach. Simple. Let me get week 20 up here so we can look at what the initial drum schedule looked like. In bidding sometime, the project period in critical factor, you're going to have to say more about that. Okay, it's working on opening up this project so we can look at what week 20 looked like once we scheduled the drum. So there's week 20 where we prioritized the projects. So we just took the remaining work of the project. We did a critical chain plan for the remaining work of each project, and then we staggered it on the drum. Again, here we're showing the drum release from an earlier project to drum engagement on a later project. I'm showing we recommend you use a capacity buffer and load the drum at 50%. And here I'm showing, just to show the relationships, I'm showing no capacity buffer and an increasing project buffer. But this shows you the staggering of the projects, that multi-project system. So we have comments here. Let's see. Let's look at this. Problem is that any workplace has some wally people. So when resources are being scheduled, everyone assigns work to the hard workers and avoid the wallies. So on paper you have 10 resources, but in effect you have 2 that each have 4 projects simultaneously, another 4 or so with projects each, and a few dodgers who manage to avoid anything at all. Okay, remember the 4 pillars of TOC. So in order to improve systems, what blocks us from systems is blaming others. So we really want to try and go into this believing that people are good, and believing that if somebody appears to be dodging work or not doing a good job, the conditions aren't right for them, and we need to figure out how to make the conditions right so they can contribute at a full level. 4 pillars of TOC. It's what blaming others is what blocks you from improving. Give it a long time, you may not get the project. Okay, so the concern is if you stagger these projects and give a commitment that's a long ways in the future, you might not get the bid. The TOC strategy and tactics trees gives you an overall approach for a viable vision. And so you want to gain reliability, and then you want to go after clients that are really looking for that reliability, where you can make a big penalty if you're late. Reeve says, being honest with customers about capacity may lose some work initially, but it's better than going out of business. As we multitasked away, we were headed for going out of business anyway. So not only were we disappointing every one of our customers, we were disappointing our shareholders because our system wasn't making money. We weren't completing projects. You will get the work back when you prove that you are reliable. And that concludes today's discussion.